A lot of us are backwards. Anyway, real quick before I get Josh up here, I know we've been going through a Siberian several days of winter, and that should remind you of something. It's baseball season, all right? Okay, we now, and as you don't know, we do have a home series this weekend. It's been moved to Sunday and Monday. That's 60 degrees and 70 degrees, just 2 games instead of the weekend that we're going to have. But anyway, getting Josh up here, I don't have to say much about Josh. This is his 13th season here. He's been to NCAA tournament, I think, every year but one, maybe. Every year. Why some? Well, if somebody show it said that we didn't make it one year, and I thought, when was that? Anyway, every year we've been in the NCAA tournament. We didn't have a. There you go. I wasn't wrong. So anyway, 5 Big 12 tournament championships. Unbelievable number of kids that have been All-Americans and going to the pros. I want to bring up Josh Holliday, our head coach at OSU baseball.
Is that on? There we go. Good? Okay, thanks. Good grief, Scott. Scared me there for a minute. No, thank you. I've had a chance to meet most of you before, and thanks for inviting me back. I think I did this right when I got hired, and then maybe once again a couple years later. So it's hard to imagine that this is the 13th year that we've been able to be back in Stillwater and raise our kids and be near our families and be at OSU. So it's pretty awesome. Not a day goes by that I don't appreciate that. So thanks for having me in today. We got back yesterday after a week-long trip to start our season. We went down to Arlington a day early last week to escape the cold weather, and then played in a great tournament to start the season. We played Clemson, lost a close game 5-4. We played Louisville, game 2, beat them, and then lost game 3 to Texas, where we made some mistakes and definitely cost us. And then we stuck around. The guy that made the schedule was brilliant. He knew it would be freezing cold here on Monday and Tuesday, so we stuck around down there and got to play an indoor game on Tuesday night and lost a hard-fought game to Texas State. So we bussed home. We took an extra night there to let the roads clear, and then we bussed home yesterday. We've been busy. I was talking to Scott and many people. I think the interesting thing about seasons and teams and groups, and it really doesn't matter what your endeavor is, comfort is great, success is great, confidence is great, but nothing gets you going and moves you into action like being challenged. And so early season scheduling to play great teams, I believe very much in our team's ability, but we're being challenged right now. So the sooner we can take on a challenge and understand where we need to get better, the quicker we can go to work on making those adjustments and hopefully become a better team in the long run. So that's where our season's at to this point. If you've ever coached or manage something, the quality of your sleep at night is oftentimes based on the direction of your entity. And I'm sleeping okay because I believe in our kids and I believe in what we're doing and I believe in how we're doing it. So we'll get there. But we're off to a cold start, literally, but hopefully it'll warm up here. We're going to play Sunday and Monday. As you guys know, that beautiful stadium of ours is natural grass and dirt, and so it takes a little time for the ice to thaw, for the dirt to thaw, and ultimately for that nice shaded cold area around home plate to thaw as well. But we're optimistic by Sunday and Monday we can do that. We'll play one game each day because we turn around and leave and go on the road and play Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So that'll be 7 games inside of 6 days. That'll be a lot of baseball, and it's about all we have pitching for this early in the season. So that's just a little bit about where we're at so far. We have a good team. We have some returning players that I think if you followed us, know their names. Miola, Brueggemann, Schubert, Doherty, going around the horn, kids that you know, LaSalle, Richie, some kids that have played and played a lot for us. Gabe Davis on the mound, Drew Blake on the mound, Ryan Muir, some names that have done a lot of good things already in their time here. And then a lot of newcomers. I think we have 22 new members of our team this year. 40-man team. So, we're working our way back to what I would say is a very healthy traditional roster cycle where Each class in your program is about 12 to 13 kids, and over the course of 4 classes, that builds a roster that you hope to have continuity with. In our sport, you can sign professionally after your junior year. And so a lot of kids will matriculate to professional baseball after year 3. And on occasion, if you're lucky and you have great seniors, then that's only a bonus to have great kids stick around for year 4. If you watch college sports or have followed it closely in the last 5 years, there's a lot of things that are spoken about and talked about repeatedly now. I don't like to waste much time on that. None of it's interesting. What's interesting and still what this is all about is team, awesome kids, development, education, having an alma mater, having great times, learning, and ultimately being better because of what you experience on the other side. So those are all the things that we're focused on with our team. Kids have done great in school so far this year. We have about 13 kids that are down the home stretch of a meaningful degree here, either at the end of the spring or after one more semester. So that's an important part of not only getting them here, but keeping them and developing them and getting them to the finish line. Really good freshman class. I think 6 freshmen made their debuts this past weekend, several of whom played really well. And I'm excited about that group. And some good guys in the middle of that grade distribution, sophomores as well, helping us. So it's a good roster. It's a good team. It's a good bunch of kids. Days like today, tomorrow, and Saturday are important days as you come back off a road trip to take what you learned, apply it to your work, and become better for the next competition. So that's a little bit where we're at. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Coach?
Yes.
Let me get your mic. Nope. You will get fined if you just talk without a mic. I got it. What's new?
I've got one.
Coach, do you have many alumni players that come back and communicate with your current players?
Yes, we do. We have had multiple alumni interaction. We had a financial education seminar this fall. John Perrin, one of our former pitchers, came back and provided some financial education to our players to help them understand some of the things they need to know at this age and at this time in college athletics, where there's some different dollars that they have access to of how to plan, ultimately prepare to pay some taxes and manage some funds. So whether it's the financial side, whether it's guys coming back just providing friendship and advice, guys training here in the off season, we were really lucky to have a lot of alumni interaction, and it's certainly something we welcome. Something that I care deeply about, having played here 4 years myself. I've always highly valued our tradition, our history, and the people that built it. We are built. What we have now is largely due in part to those guys that built this place up. So our doors are always open to the alumni, and we'll announce here shortly our Alumni Hall of Fame weekend this year. We'll do our Cowboy Baseball Hall of Fame over the course of a weekend, where we'll try to get back as many alumni as we possibly can. That's something that's new that we want to kind of create a rallying point each year for all the guys that used to play here to come back and see each other. Yes, sir.
Coach, what percentage?
I'm going to get fined.
What percentage, if any, of those who leave their junior year and go to the pros eventually finish their degrees?
A lot more now than ever before, and that's large. A lot of the credit goes to Oklahoma State. The commitment of our school, the athletic department, academic services to keep providing services to the players once they graduate or leave to help them graduate. Our counselors have worked with those guys, even though they're professionals, to keep them enrolled in classes, get them online classes, or help them work around the challenges of playing professional baseball while still trying to graduate. I would have said back in the 80s and 90s that was a low percentage. Now I would say that's close to 100%.
Really?
Yes. So, in fact, every guy playing in the minor leagues right now has either finished or is enrolled in classes, with the exception of maybe a couple. So the pursuit of their degree is not an optional thing anymore. It's become much more of an assumed certainty for our players.
Okay, just real quick, a comment. Whenever I taught finance for Spears, every baseball player that I had as a student was one of the top students in the class. My question is this, and it's way too early, but can you tell, there's some guys that are hot right now.
Okay.
Can you tell if they're on the verge of a breakout season this early?
Well, yeah, I think you can tell when kids are in a great place mentally. What you're looking for to kind of predict your question is, are they in a good routine? Do they seem to be managing their lives off the field? Um, a steady, consistent person and student has a chance to be a steady, consistent player. Most of the time when guys really start to find that sweet spot, they're in total control of the decisions they make, the discipline to go to bed at night, to wake up, to do all the right things every day, to prepare to be great. If that's going on, then that is a possibility. Great things can definitely happen. Now, I think you ultimately see consistency versus guys that are hot and cold. You'll see some talented players come out real hot and then they cool off and they kind of go back and forth. And then you will see a consistency in an All-American player start to finish. And normally the difference is just the ability to do the right thing day after day after day rather than just doing it in spurts. So one of the things our team is most committed to this year is our health and our routine. It's taking care of ourselves and staying in a great routine, because our older players have convinced our younger ones that's the key to being successful over a long season, is to have a great routine, live a healthy lifestyle, do all the right things to take care of yourself so you have a chance to play at your best. So I'm hopeful that there'll be a couple of breakout stars. But as I told the kids, the one thing that has never changed, and it never will change ever, is the fundamentals. If you try to skip the fundamentals in pursuit of the final result, baseball will bring you to your knees. So we just have to keep grinding down on the fundamental plays. And if we do that, something special has a chance to happen. But I don't want to throw a pick to click out there yet, but I know you'll be there at every game rooting them on, and I think you're going to see some guys emerge.
Hey, Josh, just quick, I'll pass it to you, Steve. The pitching staff, I may have forgot some of the pitching staff, but this looks like, as maybe in terms of height, might be one of the tallest pitching staffs as a group that you've ever had. And just interesting how pitching's changed in that regard.
Yeah, that is a very accurate observation. We have two 6'9" kids, and they're every bit of 6'9". We have 6'8", 6'7", 6'6", and 3 6'5". So we could probably change out travel suits and basketball shoes with this basketball team and be able to fill up at least some of the length to the bodies. We do have some big kids. Really not by design, but really just kind of the way we were able to recruit the kids we were able to get that have the talent. In this particular case, they're big people. One from Choctaw, one from California, one from New York City, one from Colorado. I mean, you go all over the world to find these kids, right? So we do have a big team. There's a lot of big dudes and a lot of double X pants.
Coach, in a NIL, house decision, all that kind of world,
Yes.
are you going to be able to build a more stable roster in the baseball program than we see in other sports? Will that be different for you, or how will that work?
Well, it's our goal. It's our goal to build an environment where players come and stay. The only way to do that, though, is you have to be willing to allow your players that are in your program space to surface to play in order to stay. If all you do is cover your players up with someone else's players because they're older and because you feel this knee-jerk reaction to go older because you're afraid younger can't do it, then the olders come in, the youngers don't get opportunities, the olders matriculate off, the youngers didn't get a chance to play, and then you're left with a gap. And that gap for rosters, for those of you the younger players being the youngers, the freshmen, sophomore kids, if they don't see the field because you want to play with 23-year-olds, then the 23-year-old graduates, the two younger kids say, I didn't see the field, I'm going to go where I'm promised something, and then there's a hole in the middle of the team. That hole has to be filled with recruiting the right players, being willing to play them and live with some mistakes until they become very polished and those mistakes start to become less, and then growing your own team on your own schedule. The problem is the schedule is always now. But reality is growing and developing players and people takes time. There is no magic formula to make it happen faster. Now, if the players you bring in are more advanced and super skilled, then that process obviously can move a little quicker. But so many of the great players across so many sports, there was a learning curve. I do believe we can return to more traditional rosters. Oklahoma State, if you look at our history dating back to the 70s when Coach Ward came here, has always been a perfect blend of homegrown talent. We've always had great luck with junior college transfers. That's always been a part of our identity, and an occasional transfer. And I still think a 60% high school group, 20% junior college players, and maybe a couple of key transfers in the right places is a healthy way to build your team. I'm not comfortable with the idea of turning the page on that and just becoming a revolving door for a lot of kids for 1 year. I don't know that that is the way that we're built, and I don't think that inspires the type of passionate play that Oklahoma State athletes on our best teams in school history. That type of performance comes from the heart. Those things aren't because we've simply out-talented who we play. Trust me when I tell you, everyone else has scholarships too. Okay, so there are talented athletes all over the country. For us to beat them, we not only have to execute with them, but we have to play from a place of true motivation and passion. So you need to build that into your team. I see Gary Till right there. There was no kid that pitched with more passion for being here than his son. And he was not more talented than the batters he faced. He had their talent, but the passion helped put him over the top. These things are real. They're real in sports. And if we ignore them, then we're fooling ourselves of what truly happens on the field of play. So long answer, because I've spent the last 5 years of my life studying it. There are no shortcuts, but there is a necessity to adjust. And we've done that well. I think in the last 5 years, our overall RPI across 5 seasons is number 2 in the country. So even though we've done it a different way, we've still been effective in a window of great change. Yes.
Coach, could you talk a little bit about your coaching staff as well as the rest of your support staff, your sports medicine guys, your strength and sports performance guys?
Sure. Well, coaching staff is Coach Rob Walton, his 13th year. Rob and I came in essentially a day or two apart. He's done a wonderful job. Mark Ginther is in his 2nd year. He's a 4-year letterman here at Oklahoma State. Victor Romero's been, I think, with the program now in 10 years. He was a 2-year letterman. Trey Cobb has returned to our staff. He too was a 4-year letterman and pitched professionally for a long time. In terms of our support staff, we probably have it as good as anybody when it comes to strength and conditioning and athletic training. I think Garrett Bailiff in the strength room and Chris McKenzie in the athletic training facility do an amazing job of caring for our athletes. They talk constantly. They're collaborating all the time about what's best for each athlete. They're very motivated people, very educated. So I love what's going on the first floor. That's where the strength and conditioning and athletic training areas are. Care level is elite. We feed them really well. We take good care of them, knowing that's a huge part of the performance cycle is how we eat. And we've had great continuity with our coaching staff. We're really proud of the guys. I believe in them a lot and trust them. So, I think, too, what's interesting, not that I ever set out to do this, because I certainly didn't, but between Coach Walton, myself, Mark Ginther, Trey Cobb, and Victor Romero, there's 22 varsity seasons in Oklahoma State uniforms on our coaching staff. I do think players or people that have come through Stillwater that have played here have a passion for being here that's a little different and means a little bit more to them sometimes than, say, a good coach who's just moving on through the ranks, and this is a stop on the way to something different. Not that that's bad, because it's certainly not. I was one of those coaches for 10 years out trying to learn and grow as an assistant, where Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech and Arizona State were great stops for me along the way. But we do have some very passionate coaches that are deeply committed to Oklahoma State, and so it's a very unified group. We have a lot of fun together. I have a couple other guys in the office that do a wonderful job. Hub Roberts, Jack Montgomery, and 2 of our guys going to grad school, kind of finishing up their educational piece before they move on to the real world too. So it's a good bunch. Yeah, they're a little bit like a fraternity. I took them to dinner the other night, and there was 10 of them, and they were staring at me like I was going to buy dinner. And we didn't go to Chili's, or I would have. We went to some fancy steakhouse in Arlington, so I reminded them their per diem cards work just like mine did.
Hey, Josh, real quick, a couple players from last year I don't think have seen the field quite yet. Is both Sylvester and Richie, are they nicked up? Or are they?
Yeah, Colin Ritchie's injured, hopefully returning sometime in the next 2 weeks. He's making good progress, and we just need to let his body keep adjusting day to day to the workload, and if it keeps responding correctly, we'll add to it, and Bo will make his debut sometime here in the next couple of games. So, yeah, those kids are a big part of our team, and you'll see them soon.
And what are you thinking about the Big 12? I know you have to get out of here pretty quick.
No,
but-
I think the Big 12 is really good. I know there's a what do you call it, a word association or a name affiliation with Oklahoma and Texas, and they certainly earned that because they've had great teams. But I will tell you in the sport of baseball that Arizona and Arizona State, if you took what Arizona and Arizona State have done over the last 60 years, 70 years in baseball, and you took what Texas and OU have done, and you put them all together, I think it's a push when it comes to national championships, All-American players, and elite college baseball finishes. Arizona, Arizona State, very, very strong baseball tradition. And obviously, anyone here knows that Arizona is a great place to go for baseball weather. West Coast baseball right now, there's a fracture in where West Coast players are going because they used to want to play in the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is no longer. When UCLA and USC played road games at Rutgers and Indiana and Illinois, California kids don't want to play in that league anymore. So the California players who used to flock to the Pac-12, Stanford, Cal, USC, UCLA, Oregon, they now play in the Big Ten. So West Coast players are looking to stay and play more on the West Coast or play where the weather is still a little more baseball oriented. So we've made a little bit of a breakthrough into California, got some of the best players in California committed for the upcoming years, and I think you're going to see Arizona, Arizona State really strong. Utah, I don't know a ton about other than I know their coach. He's a really good baseball coach. I've never been to either Utah or BYU, so those will be cool first-time experiences to see a new part of the world. And they say there you can play baseball when it's 25 degrees out because it's beautiful, which when their coach told me that, I said, wow, I cannot wait to experience that. I'm sure it's true. You know, he just said it's a different kind of air in the mountains, and I said, I'll believe you. But, yeah, so I think the Big 12 is really good. You know, baseball's a funny sport. If you look at some of the real key components, University of Central Florida returns more innings on the mound than any team in the conference. They're a sleeper team to be really, really good. TCU's off to a great start, and I got to hand it to the guys at Texas Tech. They went on the road at North Carolina, 3 games to start the year. They got swept, but probably much like us, they went and took on a great challenge on the road, and they'll recover. So you're going to see a lot of the same names pop up, but you're going to see some new teams too. And yeah, it'll be a lot of fun to see how it shakes out. Yes, sir, Joe.
John, with the change in roster sizes,
Yes.
how does that play into what you've done traditionally with pitching staff? What's it going to do?
So what Joe-
Since Joe did not have a mic, that's a fine. His question was, in changing roster sizes, how does that affect
Yeah,
you?
I'll cover his fine for him. I got that.
Thank you. That's $10 today.
10, okay. So what Joe's asking is we used to have a 35-man team. COVID occurred, and the NCAA for a few years said, hey, you can have as many kids on your team as you want because all these kids didn't have anywhere to go. So for a couple years, we had 42, 44 kids. Then they came back and said you can have 40 players, so we went back down to 40, and starting next year we can have 34. So that'll shrink the size of the team by a decent amount. I think what you're going to see, Joe, is 17 pitchers, 17 position players, or maybe a couple of players who could do both, right? But you're going to have 3 catchers. There's no doubt about that. So you start looking at putting a team together. It's either going to be right around 17 and 17, or possibly 18 pitchers and 16 position players with a couple of two-way players. And that's going to be to have arm health and plenty of healthy arms on the mound. Pitchers throw a lot harder now. They train differently. Good or bad, I'm not sure, but different. And there's a lot more arm injuries. There's a lot more UCL injuries to the elbow than at any point in history. And even though we've worked hard to be preventative and very proactive and keeping guys healthy, it's still a challenge. So arm health would make you lean towards more pitching on your roster so that the pitching can be strong even if you were to suffer an injury or two. But I think it's going to be 17, 17, 18, 16 pitchers to position players.
Coach, I've got a quick question. I was fortunate enough to be in Arlington and saw the Clemson game.
Okay.
Can you explain the double play that was not a double play?
Yes.
Because a gentleman told me that the umpire's explanation was interference.
That is incorrect. What happened was this: the home plate umpire said with certainty that the catcher's foot was 2 inches off home plate when he caught the ball, and that's why he called the runner at home safe. So obviously that was a force play where the foot had to be on the base. I'm not sure he and I agreed on that, but that's what he said. And this is a real tricky thing because I respect the heck out of umpires, and I teach our players to, because that has to be a factor in the game that doesn't impact how we play, right? And that gentleman that was umpiring home plate is a barber here in town, and he's actually an amazingly good umpire and a real class act too. So I don't like to argue with umpires. I like to talk to them. I respect them, but I don't like to argue with them. And we had a call 2 nights ago that infuriated me, hurt us, but I didn't want to lose my emotions and let our team see me go unwind and then allow them to feel like it was okay to unwind. And when you get thrown out of games and you leave your team lost because you vacate the premise on them, I don't like doing that to them as well. So it's a real learning curve for me as a head coach, even though I've been doing this for a long time. The younger me would not have held back. I got thrown out often and got extremely angry, emotional, and said things I regretted. And I would always go back and apologize to the umpire for saying what I said in the heat of the moment. So learning that fine line between how to take on that controversial play and try to get the right response, use the replay as much as you can, and grow as a communicator. So I wish I could go back and relive that play, to be honest with you, because you do respect the umpire. That is part of what we do, and yet you do disagree. And trying to get the right result when you disagree with someone in a professional setting is, I think if you watch a lot of basketball and football, which is what I do in the winter, you see coaches get pretty aggressive in the way in which they convey their dislike. Baseball, I don't feel like you can really do that. And then they threaten you. Coach, if you say another word, you're out of here, and I'm not going to be that guy. So you do the best you can to communicate effectively and be effective on behalf of your team. But you got to stand up for your team too. I'm not going to go out on the field and feel like things are going against us and not defend our players or our team. So it's a fine line. But I'm not proud of getting ejected, nor am I proud of what comes out of your mouth sometimes when you let it go. That is not a good place to be as a coach. So try to stay on the side of how would I want my players to respond to this here and be a model for them before that happens.
You've already kind of touched on this, but I'm curious, in 13 years, how has your training protocol changed for your players?
Physical training?
Yes.
It's gotten better and better and better. It's really grown.
Do you have more trainers working with them? Do you have more equipment?
Well, no. I think where we're really fortunate is both our strength and conditioning coach and our athletic trainer, who's a physical therapist. They've done a wonderful job. Our communication has improved. Our being on the same page about our purpose, from the baseball skill performance level to developing the body to preventing injuries, initial intake assessments when the kids get here to figure out where they're good and where they need to be more sound before something were to go sideways have all improved. Our attention to detail, our awareness. Something like the other night, we could have driven home in the middle of the night on slick roads and probably taken 8 hours and gotten home at 6 o'clock in the morning and probably thrown their sleep off. Their backs would be stiff. They'd feel like crud, and they would have spent the whole next day trying to just get themselves back together again. We spent the extra money to spend the night, one more night down there, travel safely home the next day on dry roads, and keep their bodies normal. We just make decisions that we think are going to give them the best chance to physically be in the best space to perform. So we invest more dollars into the areas of performance, less dollars into the fancy stuff. I don't think you need 6 uniforms when 4 are just fine. I'd rather spend our time and effort on their bodies and their minds and how they perform.
To get Josh here, we promised we would get him out here by 12:25. So, last question.
Josh, you're a Stillwater guy. You know this town as well as anybody in the room. As you're talking about going and recruiting kids from around the country to come live and play here in Stillwater, what are some of the things you use to sell Stillwater to student athletes, and what are the challenges, some of the challenges you see with with trying to recruit kids here? And then maybe what can we as a community do to make that job easier for you?
I don't know why the mayor would ask you. I don't know why
Stay
Well,
on point.
the best thing are the people, and I don't think it's even close. I think the people of Stillwater are the separator. To try to make sure that kids and families feel that while they're here is obviously the biggest key. If they can spend enough time on campus and around town and run into enough people, they'll sense that this is a different place because of the people. We all know it's a wonderful town, and those of us that have lived here and raised families here know all the reasons why it is. But in a 36-hour, 48-hour window, trying to help put all those great qualities on display is ultimately kind of the challenge of the visit. We typically do visits when there's a home football game, just because I think it does put the entire student body, alumni base, and town in motion, which I think people want to see motion. And the other visits they often take are on football weekends to other places. And some of those football weekends and other places are a little overwhelming. If you go to LSU or Tennessee and there's 100,000 people, it's a big event and a big deal. Well, our event is a big deal too. It's just not maybe at that level in terms of size. So we're trying to make sure that they can see the town, the university, the student body kind of in full effect. School spirit, I think kids want to be part of something that's a big deal. So they want to see the school and feel like, hey, this is a place where being an athlete here is a big deal. In terms of what we can do to help, I don't really know that we've ever encountered a time where people weren't helpful. Obviously, the fall schedule when most of the recruiting goes on is pretty jam-packed. The town, I think, operates at pretty much full capacity, whether that be hotel, restaurant, all the stuff is going, boom, pretty busy, pretty packed. So those weekends are just, they're busy, they're full throttle. I think the biggest challenge we face is just getting people here. Getting kids to Stillwater is a little bit of a challenge, not because anything other than you have to have a reason to come. A lot of schools are just right off the road, and so they get a lot of drop-in visitors. Kids in the Metroplex will go see a lot of the schools in that area. I think the ability to fly into Stillwater has greatly improved our ability to create a great perception when people arrive. Oklahoma City, Tulsa, then you have an hour-long drive you got to kind of fill with a lot of dialogue. And when they can land right in Stillwater and be on campus in 5 minutes, that's changed a lot of things for us. That's made it more enjoyable, more flexible, makes it feel like it's easier to get here. So I think that's been a huge help. Hopefully the number of flights can continue to grow over time. But really, I think it's the people. And, you guys probably have read and heard there are a lot of other reasons why kids are choosing colleges now, outside of just how they feel while they're there or what they want to study or falling in love with a place and saying that's where I want to go to college. But we're still for the right people. This is still the right place for the right kids. And we got to keep believing in that, because I could list 100 people off the top of my tongue that have come here as athletes in the last 40 years that were pretty remarkable. So we'll get ours. We just have to work a little harder sometimes to get them.
We promised we'd get you out here at 12:25. It is 12:25.
Keep your word.
So
Thank
let's
you.
give them a hand.